Logan Wilson of the Cincinnati Bengals, he requested a trade. The guy that he was voted team captain for the first time in his career this year, the guy that wears the C on his chest, he requested a trade in the middle of a season when you just won a game against Pittsburgh and you clearly have a lot of life as it relates to your season. And I've got some issues with that, to be completely honest with you. Craig Sandlin, Breed Mouse did a tremendous job when the news broke late yesterday afternoon, early evening. Ben Baby had it for ESPN. By the way, hopefully we can get Ben Baby on the show here coming up soon. Does a tremendous job, covering the Bengals for ESPN. But he had the story later confirmed by a bunch of other people that cover the Cincinnati Bengals, and I just don't like it. I don't like it whatsoever. Logan Wilson is a guy that I've had tremendous amount of respect for. When they took him in the third round of 2020, I was hyped, right? Coming out of Wyoming. Obviously, he's not a high-profile, college guy, but you saw, he got some buzz kind of leading up to that draft. Then you're seeing kind of his clips or whatnot, and you're like, oh, this guy can play. He's playing linebacker, has that safety background. The ball skills are great. And you remember that early in his career, right? That's what made Logan Wilson so fun, is he was out there playing linebacker and he was hitting people, but he was so good in coverage, and if you threw the ball near him, there was an opportunity that he was going to pick it off. And unfortunately for him, he hasn't really had that element to his game over the past couple of years. I get he has aged very, very quickly. He's had some issues staying healthy, right? Clearly looks like he has lost a step. That happens in the NFL, right? If you're not playing quarterback, if you're playing a position when you're consistently getting in car crashes, i.e. running back and linebacker, you can age quickly. And he's a guy that I think he's still only 29 years old at this point, about to turn 30 maybe, but clearly not the same player he once was. And the Bengals made a decision to move off him. And, for the most part, he has said the right things in the media. He's clearly frustrated. He's allowed to be frustrated, right? He's a competitor, and he's started throughout his entire career here to this point, and he's a captain. He views that he should be out there with his teammates, wearing that green dot and being the leader of their defense, and then he gets benched, right? And it kind of wasn't – I don't think it was a full-scale benching. It wasn't the Green Bay game, and then there were some questions like, are we even going to see Logan Wilson out on the football field on defense for Al Golden? And he was out on the football field. His playing time ticked up. It was 19.7% of the defensive snaps in the Green Bay game, and then on the short week against Pittsburgh, he was up to 47.5% of the snaps there on defense. And this is a guy, right? He's under contract. Right, and that's something that really ticks me off in the world of sports, where you got these guys complaining about, situations, requesting trades, wanting more money, and it's like, you're under contract. Why did you sign the contract if you're going to sit here and be all ticked off about it? And it's not just the NFL, and it's not just Logan Wilson and Trey Hendrickson, right? It's all types of guys throughout the league and in other sports there as well, the NBA and even Major League Baseball there to some degree, and it really just kind of makes me scratch my head. Look, when the Bengals gave him the contract, he's under contract through 2027, by the way. It was a 4-year deal, $36 million. That's a sizable contract there for a linebacker, and I thought he deserved it. I would have done the same thing, and I was happy that he was going to be sticking around for the long term. But to request a trade in this situation, I mean, I just don't get it. You're supposed to be one of the leaders of this team, and credit to him for, apparently Barrett Carter's come out there and said, nothing has changed between the two of us, and he's still, been there for me, and he's done a tremendous job of helping teach me, and for the most part, he said the right things to the media, as I alluded to. It's a tough spot to be. Getting benched, you're a player, you're an alpha, you're a linebacker, you've got a lot of pride, and all of a sudden you're a bench guy and a special teams guy, and that's got to be, a tough decision or a tough situation there to swallow if you're Logan Wilson. But to request a trade in this situation, right? It's a linebacker position, right? This isn't like you're the quarterback, right? I mean, it's linebackers, it's the NFL. They get hurt, right? Logan Wilson, there will be a time, if he's on the team throughout the duration of the year, where if somebody's banged up, whether it's Barrett Carter, whether it's Demetrius Knight Jr., Burks, right? Somebody's going to not be a full go there at the linebacker spot, and they're going to need him. Right? And if you're a true team captain and a true leader, you'll understand that role. Do I get requesting a trade in the offseason after the conclusion of this season? Sure. That's fine. Right? You want to play it out through this year and be like, all right, you know what? I was frustrated with the role. I still think I'm a starter in this league. I want to request a trade. That's totally fine. But to do it here in the middle of the season, right? And again, it's one thing if you lost the game to Pittsburgh. Because you lose that game against Pittsburgh and you're like, well, you know what? That's probably all she wrote. You got to get hot, and you got to get hot quickly if you want to come back from that. But now you're sitting here in a spot, right? Where you're 3-4, you've got some momentum. You've got a quarterback that's playing at a high level at 40 years old. You got an offense that has woken up. You got some semblance of a run game offensively. You're creating some turnovers on defense. This thing's trending in the right direction, and you're going to request a trade? I don't get it at all. And in fact, I have an issue with it. I have a big time issue with it. And we mentioned earlier in the week, I believe it was what do we hear on Friday, Wednesday morning, ESPN came out with an article where they listed their top 25 players likely to be dealt at the trade deadline, or the top 25 most popular names, right? They didn't rank them by likeliness because they had Trey Hendrickson at 1, but Bengals probably not going to move Trey Hendrickson, right? But they had Logan Wilson on that list, as we discussed earlier in the week with Casey McAllister, and ESPN gave it a 60% chance that the Bengals would trade him. And I was just blown away at that number. I was like, yeah, the Cincinnati Bengals, they don't, typically make these in-season moves. Obviously they made it for Joe Flacco. That was kind of a rare circumstance. And, they made it at the deadline last year for Khalil Herbert. Again, a rare circumstance. Maybe they're just kind of turning the corner as an organization and getting a little bit more aggressive. But when I saw that number, 60%, I was like, there's no way. I mean, if I'm the Cincinnati Bengals, there's no way I want to trade Logan Wilson. What, are you going to just try to rush back and get a pick that you, a day 3 pick that you gave up for Flacco? I know Cincinnati loves their picks and they covet their picks, very highly, but it wouldn't make any sense from a Cincinnati perspective. Maybe ESPN, Ben Baby at the time was like, yeah, it's only a matter of time before, Logan Wilson requests a trade. And then here we are the following day on Thursday, yesterday, where ultimately he comes out and he does request the trade. And, I don't think Cincinnati should grant this trade request, to be completely honest with you. Look, they got 2 rookie linebackers out there. Nobody in the National Football League last week had 2 starting rookie linebackers. You just don't do that, right? I get, rookies in this league, especially as the quarterbacks make more money and the receivers make more money, rookies need to come in and play earlier. You're seeing that across the league, right? Regardless of position. I feel like kind of when I was growing up, it was like, yeah, sometimes like the rookies in the first round, they were going, but if you were a late round pick, you were kind of just feeling it out through the first year. No, like if you're a 3rd, 4th round pick, 5th round pick, like you're going as a rookie. And I think that stems from, the quarterbacks making so much money and the receivers making so much money, the edge rushers making so much money, where it's like, well, we can't afford to, pay veteran guys. Like we need to lean on our rookies. And that's totally fine, but I think you need to have some stability behind Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight Jr., because let's be very clear here with the Cincinnati Bengals. I know we're all excited, and we should be, with Joe Flacco in this offense, but this defense is horrible, right? And if you keep being this bad on defense, you're in a spot where it's like, all right, Logan, we need you to get back out there because we're even worse than we are, without you than we were with you. Right, you trade him, and then of course you don't have that option. So I think it would be a mistake for Cincinnati to trade him. Again, I was surprised at the 60%, likelihood that ESPN designated. Now, what does that mean? Who knows? It could just be, fairy dust, right? Could mean nothing. But I thought that was interesting. And then the next day he comes out and requests a trade. Landing spots, there's one obvious one, right? I think the Indianapolis Colts, right? Lou Anarumo, Germaine Pratt already, signed. He was with the Raiders, and then he got let go, and he was immediately signed by Indianapolis. Indy's got some banged-up linebackers, right? They're hurt at that position. That could make a ton of sense. I assume Lou Anarumo would want him. So I think that certainly is a potential landing spot. And also the Dallas Cowboys. I think that's kind of an interesting fit. Dallas has an awful defense there as well. In a lot of ways, the Cowboys organization, the Bengals organization kind of remind you of one another. Obviously, the Bengals don't get as much media attention and what have you, but just kind of, there's a lot of parallels in the organization, right? Obviously, the past couple of years, great offense, bad defense, right? Contract disputes where they wait seemingly to the last minute to pay guys. I don't know. It just kind of feels like the two organizations have been similar over the course of the past, 5 to 7 years, I would say. But anyway, I think Dallas could make potential sense, for Logan Wilson. I think that's a type of move that Jerry would make. What do you get for Logan Wilson? I don't know, like a 6th-round pick, right? I mean, is that a possibility there with Logan Wilson? And mind you, this isn't a guy that, looks like a really good football player at this point. It doesn't look like a guy that's on a deal that's 4 years, $36 million. Let's be very clear. He doesn't. He hasn't been as good in coverage, and he's not moving around as quickly. And if he's missing tackles there as well, it's like, well, you're kind of a liability for us out there on the defensive side of the football. So we'll see. Thought it was interesting. I was surprised I knew he was frustrated. Obviously, he's a competitor. He's an alpha. It makes total sense for him to, be frustrated with the fact that he's not being a starter anymore when he's healthy. I did not expect him as a captain of this football team, the first time, by the way, he has been a captain of this football team, to go out there and request a trade. I just think it's I think it's a little embarrassing, candidly. I think it's kind of a loser's mentality. I think it's selfish, and we'll see. If I'm the Cincinnati Bengals, I don't grant it. But then again, maybe they will, considering, how they've kind of changed a little bit how they've operated as an organization. Right, with the Flacco trade, the Khalil Herbert trade at the deadline, paying Jamar and T, right? They've kind of changed their structure a little bit as an organization, some of the decisions that they make. So I was caught off guard by the news yesterday. I wouldn't do it if I'm Cincinnati. I get why he's frustrated, and I also get why he got benched. But, the Barrett, Carter, Demetrius Knight Jr. thing, let's not act like, that looks great. They'll be just fine with those two guys throughout this year. Yeah, let's move off them. I'm not convinced. They've shown you some good things. Knight had some good moments. He's had good moments throughout the year, but he's also had bad moments. And Barrett Carter, it's just, what he did against Green Bay and against Pittsburgh, it's like, that's not great, right? That's not elite football by any stretch of the imagination. It's not even really average football. It's kind of bad football, to be honest with you. But clearly Al Golden, Zac Taylor have belief in Barrett Carter, and interested to see, what the snap count looks like for Logan Wilson here at this point, because you request a trade. Now there's that awkwardness in the locker room. It's like, you just requested a trade, and we're here with the most momentum we've had all season long, and you're going to try to get out of here? Well, it's just really tough for me to understand it. Under contract, getting paid good money, right? For him, I get he's ticked off, but he should be in a spot like, well, I've been really banged up the past 2 years, and this is an opportunity maybe for me to get a little bit healthier so I can start playing a little bit better football. But obviously that didn't happen for Logan Wilson. That wasn't the mindset he had. He requested a trade, and we'll see if Cincinnati does anything about it.